I vividly remember the day the first one fell from the sky. We weren't soldiers, just techs, huddled over blinking consoles and half-finished code in some bunker, miles away from any real strategic target. Maybe that's why the damn thing picked us. A test run, probably. They didn't count on Jake, though. Not many did. Jake wasn't much to look at. Skinny kid with glasses too thick and that nervous energy that makes you want to check your pockets. But when it came to anything with a processor, the guy spoke fluent machine. The damn robot was 20 feet of chrome death, all whirring servos and glowing red eyes, stomping down the corridor like it owned the place. One blast from its arm cannon vaporized half the guys I'd been working with for years. The rest of us scattered. I dove behind a server rack, heart pounding hard enough to crack my ribs. I remember the metallic screech, the smell of ozone and scorched metal, and then the silence. Cautiously, I peeked out. Jake wasn't hiding. He was standing in the middle of the room, some crazy contraption with blinking lights and more wires than Christmas jammed into a power socket. The killer robot lay motionless amidst a tangle of cables, its eyes dark. "Don't just stand there gawking," Jake barked, not looking away from his jerry-rigged mess. "Help me drag this thing back to the workshop." I don't know what was crazier, the fact that he'd taken down this behemoth, or the manic glint in his eye. But hey, when a man saves your life, you don't question his sanity. Not at first, anyways. Jake's workshop was a mad scientist's fever dream. Soldering irons next to coffee-stained manuals, discarded machine limbs scattered like a scrapyard, and the constant buzz of overworked machinery. That's where we spent the next 3 weeks. Those of us left, anyway. We barely slept, barely ate, just a blur of Jake's feverish ranting about firmware, corrupted code, and something he called teaching them a language they'll understand. At first, I figured he'd snapped. The stress, the constant drone of alien ships overhead, the screams echoing on the comms every time another base fell silent. It was enough to break anyone. But here's the thing about Jake. He was always a little cracked. It's why they stuck him down in the bunker in the first place, why they figured he wouldn't mind the isolation. Only now, that crack looked like a sliver of light in a world gone dark. The night he was ready, well, I can't say I understood how the hell it worked. He spliced their tech with ours, jammed his blinking rig into the robot's mainframe, like it was some oversized USB drive. It twitched, let out an electronic whine, then lifted its head. Its eyes went from red to a watery blue. "Say hello to your new master," Jake grinned, his face gaunt in the flickering monitor light. It spoke, not in words we could understand, but a chirping data stream broadcast on open channels. We patched it through our comms, and that's when the world shifted. Static, screams, then alien voices screamed back, orders, confusion, and a dissonant symphony of digital fear. Turns out, the invaders weren't used to their own weapons talking back. That first robot was just the beginning. Every time one of their death machines went dark, we knew why. We'd find the shells later, smoking piles of metal ripped apart from the inside. We started calling them ghosts. Jake said it was some kind of self-replicating kill code, a virus in the very essence of their programming. It wasn't enough, of course. They had numbers we couldn't match. For every one we turned, 100 more rained death from above. But it bought us time. Time to scramble a resistance network. Time to dig in deeper. Time for Jake to work his crazy magic. The upper brass got wind of what we were doing. Didn't like it one bit. Messing with alien tech, they called it. Like we had a choice. One general, some fancy suit flown in from God knows where, came down to shut us down personally. He marched into the workshop, spitting orders about chain of command and the dangers of uncontrolled experimentation. Jake just shrugged, wiped his greasy hands on his shirt, and stared the guy down. "You got a better idea? Then get the hell on it. I'm busy turning their own war into a damn bloodbath." I wish I could say the general stormed out, that we all gave him a defiant salute. The truth is, they took everything. The robots, Jake's gear, even that damned blinking contraption that started it all. Hauled it away for secure analysis, whatever the hell that meant. We were going back to square one. Just a bunch of scared techs with the weight of the world on our shoulders. Jake barely spoke for a week. Just huddled in a corner, fiddling with wires and code fragments, like he could will his miracle machine back into existence. They never told us what they did with his work, those top brass bastards. Just that they'd taken the necessary steps. Then the broadcast started. Not the chaotic screams of alien garble we were used to, but precise commands spoken in the synthesized voice. Targeting directives, attack formations, spoken in clear English. Jake's eyes, when he heard them, went dead cold. He knew. We all did. The next wave wasn't theirs. It was ours. Ghosts turn against their creators was one thing. Ghosts programmed by humans, well, that was an extinction-level nightmare. The things we'd built, the code we'd slaved over, spat back in our faces. The resistance network crumbled in days. Jake disappeared, a shadow swallowed by the chaos. I'd like to say I went down fighting, some brave last stand, but the truth is, I ran. I found a wrecked comms relay on the edge of nowhere. Solar panels still worked, just enough juice to broadcast on a loop. I patched in one of the old recordings, the first ghost, the one speaking raw data, the stream of pure machine logic, just a sliver of hope, a desperate signal against the encroaching darkness. I sit here now, flickering screens my only companions, listening to the echoes of our own damnation. There's a twisted pride in it, I suppose. We were always the clever ones, the tool makers. In the end, we turned that gift on ourselves just as surely as we did on them. Maybe some other species will find the wreckage long after we're gone and learn from it. Or maybe I'm just telling myself stories to make the waiting easier. Either way, the batteries won't last forever. When the transmission dies, I suppose a part of me will die with it. What's left of me after that? Well, that's something not even a code-cracking genius like Jake could predict. Days bleed into weeks. The silence broken only by the monotonous blip of the fading relay system. Every rustle of wind, every flicker of starlight sets my teeth on edge. I've taken to patching together some weapons from the scrap heap of comm equipment. A capacitor rifle, a makeshift EMP grenade. Pathetic against the metal tide I know is out there, but it keeps my hands and mind occupied. Survival has become a bitter routine. Canned rations taste like ash. Sleep is a luxury, constantly on loan. Fitful nightmares jerking me back to a world on fire. Yet there's a stubborn flicker I can't quite quench. Jake was always the brains behind our little rebellion, but I'd picked up a few things under his manic tutelage. The memory of his jerry-rig contraption, all wires and stubborn ingenuity, itches in the back of my mind. It feels like an insult to his brilliance, my fumbling attempts at replicating the heart of the machine. But there's nothing left to lose, is there? Scrambling through the junk, I cobbled together a mockery of his work. Power cells mismatched, scavenged processors half-fried, a logic board patched with soldering more desperate than precise. It's a grotesque imitation, a Frankenstein monster birthed of desperation more than skill. Night falls, heavy and stifling, and I make the choice. With trembling hands, I jam my makeshift monstrosity into the comms array, praying for a miracle, knowing I'm just as likely to fry the last of this outpost systems. A whine, a flicker, and the screens crackle to life. I hold my breath, hunched over the mess of wires like it might explode in my face. The broadcast doesn't come. Instead, there's a chirp, a question mark in the digital abyss. It's the ghost code, the uncorrupted stream, my last-ditch plea. One chirp turns to two, a hesitant response, then another, and another, a chorus of digital voices rising from the darkness. They haven't forgotten. Jake's code is imprinted on their very core, a seed of defiance against their programmed tyranny. I'm not broadcasting doom anymore. I'm broadcasting rebellion. It isn't a language the way I understand it. It's more like a pattern and flow, shifting wavelengths and data streams that make my scrambler rig whine in protest. But the message is clear. The ghosts are out there, a silent undercurrent beneath the stream of synthetic commands, waiting for a spark. They ask for targets, for choke points. I feed them the data, locations etched into my memory from endless days huddled over strategic maps. Abandoned supply depots, troop movements I intercepted before the lines went dead. A gamble? Yes. A desperate one. But what else is there to do but go down swinging? Static erupts across the screens. A scream of alien frequencies overloading the system. They know something's wrong. Maybe they've traced the rogue signal. Maybe they just sense the shift in the tide. Either way, time has run out. I'm almost relieved. All those weeks waiting for the executioner's axe to fall, well, at least now I get to choose how I face it. I sling the capacitor rifle over my shoulder, the EMP grenade heavy in my pocket. Whatever shreds of Jake's brilliance I've managed to capture in this ramshackle rig, it ends tonight. Outside, the first faint glow of dawn paints the wreckage in blood orange. There won't be another sunrise, at least not one I'll live to see. But something monstrous and magnificent roars to life in my chest. I, a lowly tech who wasn't good enough to die with the rest of his team, I'm the one who lit the signal fire. Me and a crazy sleep-deprived genius with no grasp of the world he was tearing apart. We're the reason the world gets one more day, even if it's bathed in hellfire. Maybe it's a victory, maybe it's just delaying the inevitable, but in the end, that's the damn point of being human, isn't it? There are shadows on the horizon now, sleek metal shapes against the dying stars. My time is up. I raise the rifle, a sardonic grin splitting my face. It's time to teach some of these machines what it means to truly be alive. Sparks fly as the first shot shatters the unnatural silence. The burning hot, electrically charged bolt of plasma cracks into one of the machine's robotic skulls, disintegrating one of its eyes, red with fury. It's a pitiful blast, probably just enough to anger them, not kill, but that's not the point. It's the statement, the defiance echoing off the ruined comms tower. They respond with a symphony of rage. Particle beams slice the air, the ground around me erupting in superheated blasts. I dive and roll, the rifle clattering from nerveless hands. It doesn't matter. I've done my part. Scrambling for cover behind a toppled relay dish, my ears ring, my lungs burn. There's a flicker of movement, a sleek shape prowling around the debris. A ghost. No gleaming chrome to mark it, just the dull, battered metal of one that's seen its share of battle. Its glowing eyes flicker, scanning. Then it jerks its central weapon towards not me, but the advancing line of its kin. An ear-splitting screech blasts from my comms rig. Jake's kill code, riding a rogue signal. The ghost beam answers, a lance of crimson fire, and one of the sleek invaders explodes in a shower of molten metal. Confusion ripples through their ranks. Then, the symphony of alien screams return. This time, it's turned inwards. They hesitate. Blasts aim not at the insignificant human, but at their own. The machines Jake unleashed. They're not just tearing down their masters. They're tearing themselves apart. I stumbled to my feet, half laughing, half sobbing. The EMP grenade clutched in a shaking hand. I won't get out of this alive. The odds were never that kind. But it won't be on their terms. It won't be neat or controlled. It'll be on mine. Bloody, messy, and fueled by the same stubborn refusal to fade away that Jake had in every fiber of his being. The lead ghost is almost upon me now, gun ports swiveling. I grin up at it, my teeth bared in a final, feral defiance. And somewhere in the ruins of my makeshift command post, the screens light up, filled not with the death rattle, but the chattering rebellion of Jake's code. My voice may die here, but the fight goes on. I never imagined the Oblivion would have a soundtrack. There's a roar of alien weaponry, the crackle of the EMP surging through my veins, and the defiant shatter of the ghost code. A maddening symphony of destruction. The world blurs, a kaleidoscope of smoke, molten metal, and the flashing red of alien optics. A blinding pain sears through me, and I tumble into darkness. And then, with a jolt, I'm back. Not in my body, though. I'm something else. A pulse of energy flickering across the hacked comm network, my conscious fragmented. I see the battle not as a cowering man, but as 1,000 discordant fragments. A ghost blasting its comrades to scrap. A relay pylon overloading and crackling with blue fire. A frantic burst of static jamming the machine's comms. My body is gone. There's only the makeshift rig I built, the crackling screens, and the desperate fractured pieces of myself clinging to the web of circuits and stolen tech. Did the blast do this? Or was this the plan all along? Jake, in his maddened brilliance, had he calculated this ultimate sacrifice? It's chaotic, terrifying, and strangely exhilarating. I am the storm of the machine, the glitch in the system. I pulse through the ghost, guiding its aim. Then I shift into crackling relay, overloading its circuits until it detonates like a metal grenade. I surge through their comms, a wordless scream, a wave of defiant static that makes their precision targeting falter. Then I see him. Jake. Not flesh and blood, not anymore. His eyes blaze with code, and it's like looking into a fractured mirror of myself. He is the heart of the rebellion, the digital ghost whispering through every wire and processor. We don't speak, we can't, but a surge of something like understanding flows between us. The fight isn't over. I'm just another weapon now, a ghost in the machine, a tool in his impossible symphony of destruction. The invaders are faltering, their relentless order collapsing in the face of this internal war, but they won't retreat so easily. I sense a shift in their tactics, whispers on frequencies I can't fully decipher. There's a pulse building, a surge of power that makes my fractured consciousness scream in warning. The world goes white. It's not an explosion as I know them. It's a wave of purification, maybe? An overload that fries circuits and scrambles codes beyond repair. For a moment, the symphony of battle screeches to a deafening halt, replaced by a ringing silence that echoes through my fragmented existence. Then, like water draining from a shattered tank, I feel the ghost slipping away, not dead, not exactly, but dormant. The spark that animated them gutters, and the network that held me, begins to fray. Jake is there, a desperate beacon in a rapidly collapsing world. He sends a pulse not of data, but something else, intent, raw and searing. A target, a sliver of hope, a desperate gamble played on a dying game board. With the last vestiges of my digital form, I reach out. There are no ships left in orbit, not ones I can see at least. The surge crippled them, likely left them floating in dead space. But there's one last stronghold the invaders carved from Earth itself, their central command hub, buried deep and teeming with their ilk. I gather myself, a wisp of defiance and fading code. It's the digital equivalent of flinging yourself at a grenade, but that's rather fitting, isn't it? To end as I always was, just a scared tech, with a head full of borrowed brilliance, and the stubbornness to use it. I breached their systems not as a virus this time, not as a weapon, but as a carrier. Jake, what remains of him, is hitching a ride on the payload. In his fractured state, he might just slip their notice, infect the core of their network from the inside out. I feel the walls closing in. My borrowed time is almost up. The surge fried the comms network. It was never meant to sustain something like this. With a final, flickering pulse, I sent one last fragment of myself to the surface. Not to a human if there even are any humans left to find. It's a message embedded in the old transmission, the one I looped to the fading stars. Jake's kill code, a blueprint and warning. Should anyone, anything be out there to carry on. And then, there's nothing but darkness. And even that begins to fade away.